moon hung high above the Cloudvale Mountains, its pale light cascading through the canopy of ancient trees. Mist coiled like living threads between the trunks, weaving a silent silver tapestry across the midnight forest. The air was cool and sharp, filled with the faint hum of spiritual energy, and every breath carried the faint scent of blooming plum blossoms carried down from Moonlit Peak. Lin Feng moved silently through the forest, his azure lotus sword sheathed at his back, his senses sharp and alert. His white and pale blue robes barely rustled as he walked, his every step disciplined, measured. As an inner disciple of Cloudvale's sect, nightly patrols were routine. But tonight, something felt different. The energy in the air was disturbed. He paused, narrowing his eyes. The faintest tremor in the chi flow pulsed through his core, a dark, irregular ripple that didn't belong. Demonic. The thought made his brow furrow. Demonic energy this close to Cloudvale sect was dangerous, forbidden. Lin Feng's hand instinctively brushed the hilt of his sword as he followed the disturbance deeper into the woods. The spiritual energy grew heavier, denser. Shadows thickened unnaturally, curling in the corners of his vision. Every instinct screamed caution, but his steps never faltered. Finally, beneath the ancient willow at the heart of the grove, Lin Feng saw him. A young man lay collapsed at the base of the tree, half hidden in the mist. His long black hair was tangled and matted with sweat and blood, strands clinging to his pale skin like ink on parchment. His chest rose and fell shallowly. Each breath labored, while faint traces of dark, demonic aura coiled weakly around his broken form. Lin Feng's grip on his sword tightened. A demonic cultivator. Every rule, every lesson drilled into him by Cloudvale sect demanded one response: eliminate the threat. The sect did not tolerate demonic cultivators. They were dangerous, unstable, and often beyond redemption. But as Lin Feng studied the young man, something inside him hesitated. The demonic aura was present, yes, but faint, unstable, not controlled, not malicious. The man looked fragile, barely clinging to consciousness. His robes tattered, stained with blood. "You here to kill me too?" the stranger rasped, his voice weak but laced with something almost teasing beneath the pain. Lin Feng's heart clenched unexpectedly. There was no hostility in the man's tone, only resignation, and behind it, a flicker of something else: fear, loneliness. The proper thing to do would be to report him, to finish him before he could recover. Instead, Lin Feng knelt. "You are injured," Lin Feng said softly, his voice steady but not unkind. "Do not move." The man's lips curled faintly into a pained smirk. "Kind cultivator," he murmured. "How unusual." Lin Feng ignored the remark and placed his hand gently over the man's chest, channeling a thread of his own spiritual energy to stabilize the man's weakening pulse. The demonic energy resisted at first, but then yielded, blending weakly with Lin Feng's pure sword qi in a delicate, fragile balance. "You shouldn't be here," Lin Feng whispered, more to himself than to his patient. "Who are you?" The man's eyes fluttered closed again, his energy fading. But before sleep took him, he whispered, "Yue Han." The name lingered in Lin Feng's mind as he quickly scanned their surroundings. Others might come looking. Sect patrols, elders. If Yue Han was found, his fate was sealed against his better judgment. And everything Cloudvale sect stood for, Lin Feng made his decision. He gently lifted Yue Han onto his back, cradling the unconscious form carefully. "Hold on," he murmured. "I'll hide you, just for tonight." Under the cover of moonlight and mist, Lin Feng carried him toward a secluded cave at the base of Moonlit Peak, one long forgotten by the sect's disciples. It would be safe, for now. As Lin Feng settled Yue Han onto a bed of moss and lit a small lantern, he couldn't shake the uneasy feeling gnawing at him. Who was this man? Why did his demonic aura feel so unstable, so broken? And why, of all things, did Lin Feng feel this strange pull toward him? A mixture of caution, curiosity, and something dangerously close to compassion. He exhaled deeply, eyes flickering to Yue Han's resting face, and whispered into the stillness of the cave, "What are you hiding, Yue Han?" Outside, the moonlight filtered through the blossoms once more. Chapter 2. The Hidden Sanctuary. The faint light of dawn barely touched the dense forest as Lin Feng carefully guided Yue Han through the narrow, overgrown path. The rogue cultivator leaned heavily against him, each step labored, his breaths shallow but determined. The wounds on his body had stopped bleeding thanks to Lin Feng's earlier emergency treatment, but exhaustion clung to him like a heavy cloak. At the base of Moonlit Peak, hidden behind a curtain of wild vines and jagged stone formations, lay a forgotten cave. One even most Cloudvale disciples didn't know existed. Long ago, Lin Feng had stumbled upon it during one of his solitary meditations. Drawn by its natural spiritual flow and quiet seclusion, it was here, beneath layers of moss and tangled roots, that he now brought Yue Han. "We're almost there," Lin Feng murmured, voice steady despite his own fatigue. Yue Han let out a soft laugh, breathless but teasing. "You must really enjoy carrying wounded strangers, senior cultivator." Lin Feng's lips pressed into a thin line. "Don't speak. You'll waste energy." "Ah, but you make it so easy to tease." Yue Han closed his eyes briefly, leaning more heavily against him. "You've got the whole cold and honorable hero act down perfectly." Ignoring the jab, Lin Feng pushed aside the final layer of vines and led them inside. The cave was cool and surprisingly spacious, its stone walls glistening faintly under the filtered light. In the center, a small pool of spiritual water shimmered, its surface rippling gently despite the stillness of the air. Lin Feng settled Yue Han down onto a bed of dry moss near the pool. Rest here. This place is hidden and laced with natural spiritual energy. It will help your body recover faster. Yue Han's gaze wandered around the cavern. Not bad for a hideout, though I didn't take you for the type who'd risk harboring someone like me. I haven't decided if you're worth the risk yet, Lin Feng replied bluntly. But you're injured, and I couldn't leave you to die. Yue Han smirked faintly. Compassionate and self-righteous. You really do fit the stories they tell about Cloudvale's sword peak. Lin Feng's sharp gaze met his. You speak as though you're familiar with my sect. I know enough. Yue Han shifted slightly, his face momentarily shadowed. Most of your elders would have killed. The cave grew quiet. Outside, the wind whispered through the leaves, carrying distant bird calls as the morning sun began to rise higher. Before Lin Feng could respond, his spiritual communication talisman pulsed faintly at his waist. He pulled it free and activated it. A senior elder's voice spoke through the talisman, grave and clipped. Disciples, remain vigilant. There are reports of demonic cultivators nearby. If anyone notices irregularities or dark energy fluctuations, report immediately. Lin Feng deactivated the talisman with a sigh, tucking it away. The timing was bitterly ironic. He glanced back at Yue Han, whose expression had darkened the message. You see, Yue Han whispered, this world isn't kind to people like me. I'm not my sect, Lin Feng said quietly. Not all of us view things in such black and white. Yue Han opened his eyes again, staring at him for a long moment. And yet you still follow their rules. You wear their robes, carry their sword. How long before you decide I'm not worth defying them for? Lin Feng's gaze hardened. If I thought you were a threat, you wouldn't be here. That answer seemed to catch Yue Han off guard. He let out a soft, hollow laugh. You're either braver than you look, or more foolish. Lin Feng offered him a small, almost imperceptible shake of his head. Neither. I simply don't believe someone's worth is determined by their blood. For the first time, Yue Han's smile softened, not mocking, not sarcastic. You're strange. Lin Feng ignored the comment, reaching for his satchel and retrieving a small jade vial. Drink this. It will strengthen your core temporarily, while your spiritual flow stabilizes. Yue Han accepted the vial, studying Lin Feng with new curiosity before taking a slow sip. As the medicinal liquid slid down his throat, a faint glow began to pulse within his meridians. After a moment, Lin Feng shifted his posture and sat cross-legged opposite him. Your energy pathways are unstable. If you trust me, I can help circulate your qi. Yue Han arched a brow, a playful glint returning to his eyes. Are you inviting me to dual cultivate with you, Lin Feng? Lin Feng's cheeks flushed faintly at the implication. This is purely to help your condition. Yue Han chuckled under his breath. Shame. Despite the teasing, he settled into a matching position. Yue Han's expression relaxed as the strain eased from his body. You're good at this. I've studied many healing techniques, Lin Feng replied, though even he was mildly surprised at how naturally their cultivation aligned. For a long while, they remained like this, silent, connected, steady. The faint glow of spiritual light illuminated their linked hands as the morning sun finally broke fully over Moonlit Peak, casting warm, golden rays into the sanctuary. In that quiet moment, beneath the ancient mountain, something unspoken formed between them, fragile but undeniable. Neither of them yet understood how much this connection would alter their destinies. Chapter 3: Shadows in the Sect. The peaceful days under Moonlit Peak were numbered. Though Lin Feng tried to maintain the appearance of normalcy within the Cloudvale sect, the quiet pull between his duty and his secret weighed heavily on him. Every bow to his elders, every sparring match with his fellow disciples felt hollow, each moment concealing the growing truth. He was harboring a rogue cultivator within the sect's very borders. It wasn't long before rumors began to swirl. Strange energy in the mountains, whispered one disciple to another. I heard demonic fluctuations near the East Ridge, murmured another. The elders are watching closely, came the more ominous voice. And indeed, they were. High atop the Cloudvale sect's main hall, Elder Meng, a sharp-eyed, silver-haired cultivator known for his ruthlessness, stood before the sect master, his expression grim. Elder Meng had long harbored suspicion toward Lin Feng, who was known not only for his rapid rise, but also for his increasingly withdrawn behavior in recent weeks. My lord sect master, Elder Meng spoke, voice steady. I sense demonic fluctuations emanating from the Moonlit Peak. Subtle but present. Someone is concealing forbidden energy. The sect master, an old man of calm wisdom, furrowed his brow. You believe one of our disciples consorts with demonic forces? Elder Meng's lips tightened. Not yet proven, but I intend to investigate further. With a simple nod, his investigation was authorized, and the shadows within the sect deepened. Down beneath Moonlit Peak, unaware of the tightening noose, Lin Feng and Yue Han continued their secret training. The cave had become their private sanctuary, a place where forbidden lines blurred and where Lin Feng could pretend, for a time, that the rest of the world did not exist. Yue Han sat cross-legged beneath the flickering glow of spiritual lanterns, the air humming with dark energy. Lin Feng, kneeling across from him, guided their breathing in unison. The demonic aura around Yue Han pulsed faintly, controlled, but always on the verge of slipping. Again, Lin Feng instructed softly. Yue Han exhaled slowly, his voice teasing as usual. You are far more patient with me than I deserve, Lin Feng. Lin Feng's gaze hardened, though not unkindly. Control your breathing. Yue Han smirked, but obeyed. The moon shadow arts were unlike any technique Lin Feng, but it was also beautiful. Yue Han opened his eyes, studying Lin Feng closely. You're risking everything for me, he said, voice softer now, the teasing gone. Lin Feng did not avert his gaze. I choose to trust you. A brief silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken emotion. Yue Han's lips curved faintly. If only the rest of your sect thought like you. Suddenly, the light within the cave dimmed as a pulse of foreign energy swept through the mountain. Lin Feng's head snapped upward. Someone is probing the barrier. Yue Han's smile faded. The elder? Lin Feng nodded. They're getting closer. Panic threatened to rise, but Lin Feng forced himself to remain calm. We need to end today's session. Any further fluctuation will draw more attention. As they stood, Yue Han reached out, his hand briefly brushing Lin Feng's arm. Just a moment of contact, but one filled with quiet intimacy. Thank you, Yue Han whispered. Lin Feng stiffened, unsure how to respond to the warmth flooding his chest. He stepped back, composing himself. Go deeper into the cavern. I'll handle any inquiries. Meanwhile, above, Elder Meng paced at the foot of Moonlit Peak. He could feel the residual traces of demonic qi lingering faintly in the air, like smoke after a distant fire. His sharp senses traced the energy to a point, only to feel it vanish entirely. Someone is shielding it, he muttered. His eyes narrowed. Lin Feng. The thought planted itself firmly in the elder's mind. The investigation was far from over. As night fell, Lin Feng stood atop Moonlit Peak, gazing down at the vast sect grounds below. The weight on his shoulders grew heavier with each passing moment. Every step forward with Yue Han risked his position, his sect, and even his life. Yet, when he closed his eyes, all he could see was Yue Han's faint smile, the way his shadows danced in rhythm with his sword, and the strange, unspoken connection blossoming between them. The sect may call it treason. The heavens may call it blasphemy. But to Lin Feng, it felt like fate. Chapter 4. Trial of the Forbidden Realm. The cold mist clung to Lin Feng's robes as he and Yue Han stood before the ancient gates of the Forbidden Realm. Worn talismans fluttered weakly on the crumbling stone arch, remnants of countless failed cultivators. Beyond lay a dense, cursed forest, pulsing with ominous energy. Are you certain about this? Yue Han asked softly, his usual teasing edge laced with caution. Lin Feng's hand rested firmly on his sword hilt, his voice calm. The lotus of rebirth lies within. If we succeed, my spiritual roots may fully heal, and perhaps we'll both find what we seek. Yue Han smiled faintly, the unspoken trust between them growing stronger with each step they took into the unknown. The world inside was suffocating. Towering skeletal trees stretched toward the ashen sky, their branches groaning as if alive. Shadows slid just beyond sight, and the mist thickened, whispering with voices not their own. Every step deeper felt as though the realm itself pushed back, testing their resolve. Hours passed in tense silence. Lin Feng's sword aura steadied his breath, while Yue Han's demonic aura quietly neutralized the corrupt miasma. They moved as one. two opposing forces temporarily in balance. Finally, after crossing a narrow, crumbling bridge over a chasm of endless black, they reached a small clearing bathed in pale moonlight. At its center was a still pond, and upon it floated the lotus of rebirth, its radiant white petals glowing with faint azure energy. "It's real," Lin Feng breathed, awe breaking through his usual composure. "You found it," Yue Han whispered, eyes fixed not on the lotus, but on Lin Feng himself. Lin Feng stepped forward, extending his hands toward the lotus. Instantly, streams of pure spiritual energy rose to meet him, weaving into his broken spiritual roots. His body trembled as brilliant light surrounded him, but their peace was short-lived. The pond's surface rippled, shadows burst forth, taking shape as grotesque demonic creatures with hollow eyes and twisted forms. Dozens surrounded them, snarling and hissing. They were waiting. Yue Han's voice sharpened. In a flash, he positioned himself between Lin Feng and the approaching horde, raising a barrier of moonlit shadows. "Focus on the lotus. I'll handle them." Before Lin Feng could protest, Yue Han was already moved. Lin Feng gritted his teeth, focusing entirely on stabilizing the surging spiritual energy. Every ounce of his concentration was needed. Any break could unravel the fragile repair of his spiritual roots. Yue Han fought alone, his breath growing ragged as the onslaught continued. Blood traced down his cheek from a narrow strike, but his eyes burned with fierce determination. His movements, though graceful, grew heavier with every clash. One monstrous creature lunged for Lin Feng. Yue Han moved without hesitation, throwing himself between the claws and Lin Feng's exposed back. The beast's attack tore into Yue Han's side. Pain flashed through their bond. "Yue Han," Lin Feng cried, breaking his focus for a moment. Yue Han forced a weak smile, his voice strained, yet light. "You're nearly done. I can take a few scratches." With one final burst of power, Yue Han unleashed a concentrated surge of moon shadow energy, obliterating the last of the creatures. Silence finally returned to the clearing. Lin Feng, his spiritual roots fully restored, rushed forward as Yue Han stumbled. Without hesitation, he caught him, arms tightening protectively around the injured man. "You shouldn't have risked yourself," Lin Feng whispered, voice heavy with unspoken emotion. Resting briefly against Lin Feng's shoulder, Yue Han allowed himself a rare moment of vulnerability. "For you, I always will." The moon shone brightly overhead, casting silver light over them as falling petals from unseen trees danced in the wind, silent witnesses to the bond that deepened between two souls who were never meant to meet, yet could no longer part. Chapter 5. Sect Betrayal. The morning mist hung heavy over Cloudvale Sect as Lin Feng returned, his face calm, but his mind weighed with unease. The Forbidden Realm had granted him the Lotus of Rebirth, restoring his broken foundation. But that gift came with a price he could no longer hide. Behind him, Yue Han followed at a distance, his steps light, but his aura carefully suppressed. Even now, his demonic bloodline pulsed beneath his skin. Though Lin Feng had saved him, Yue Han knew that stepping into the sect's sacred grounds was an invitation for disaster. Cloud Vale's grand hall loomed ahead, its towering jade pillars gleaming in the weak sunlight. Waiting before the elders' platform was sect leader Wu, a stern man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Arrayed beside him were the senior elders, their gazes cold and judgmental. Lin Feng's steps never faltered as he approached. Lin Feng. Sect leader Wu's voice rang across the silent courtyard. You have returned, and yet, not alone. Whispers echoed through the gathered disciples. Eyes darted toward Yue Han, recognizing his unfamiliar face and sensing the taint of his demonic cultivation. Lin Feng stood tall. Sect leader. I am prepared to explain. There is little need, Elder Zhao interrupted harshly. The evidence is already before us. You consort with a demonic cultivator. You have brought corruption into our sacred grounds. Yue Han's lips curled into a faint, mocking smile, though his hands remained at his sides. He glanced at Lin Feng, but said nothing, waiting for him to speak. Lin Feng inhaled deeply, steadying his voice. Yue Han has saved my life. Without him, my spiritual roots would remain shattered. Whatever his bloodline may be, his actions speak louder than his lineage. The demonic cannot be trusted. Another elder spat. You endanger the sect with your misplaced compassion. The sect's rules were written to protect its disciples, Lin Feng countered, his voice growing sharper. But I will not abandon someone who has done me no harm. Yue Han is not our enemy. The crowd murmured in shock at Lin Feng's open defiance. Sect leader Wu's expression darkened. You would place one outsider above your own sect? I would place what is right above blind obedience. Heavy silence fell over the courtyard. Sect leader Wu's gaze turned icy. Then you leave us no choice. With a gesture, disciples armed with swords stepped forward, forming a ring around Lin Feng and Yue Han. The sect's judgment was clear. You are hereby stripped of your position within Cloudvale's sect, Wu declared. You and your companion will leave these grounds immediately. Should you resist, you will be treated as enemies. Yue Han's voice broke the tense stillness, light but edged. You really know how to welcome guests. Lin Feng's hand moved swiftly to his sword hilt. We'll leave. The disciples tightened their formation, but Lin Feng's gaze was unyielding, his spiritual energy pulsing visibly. The message was clear. Any who tried to stop them would face consequences. After a tense pause, sect leader Wu raised his hand, signaling his disciples to stand down. Go then, but know this, Lin Feng, you have severed your ties with Cloudvale sect. Do not return. Without another word, Lin Feng turned, walking calmly toward the sect gates. Yue Han followed at his side, his smirk softening as he glanced toward Lin Feng. You didn't have to fight for me, you know? Lin Feng glanced sideways at him, his voice steady. I chose to. As they passed beyond the gates, the morning mist thickened, swallowing them into the mountain paths beyond. Though they had lost their place within the sect, neither looked back. For the first time, their paths were truly joined, not by duty, but by choice. Above them, the blossoms of Moonlit Peak stirred in the wind, as though silently bearing witness to the fragile bond that was beginning to bloom into something far stronger. Chapter 6. The Prophecy of Blood and Heaven. Days had passed since Lin Feng and Yue Han left Cloudvale Sect behind. The misty mountain paths led them deep into forgotten regions, where even sect maps dared not venture. The world here was ancient, untouched by cultivators for generations. The two moved quietly through an overgrown path, their footsteps light upon mossy stones. Despite the uncertainty of the road ahead, the tension between them had softened. Now they moved like companions, bound not just by survival, but by something unspoken. Ahead, the ruins of an ancient temple emerged from the forest. Cracked stone walls rose from the earth like broken bones, their surfaces etched with fading characters of a long-forgotten script. Moonlight filtered through gaps in the ceiling, casting pale beams onto the central altar. "This is it," Yue Han murmured, eyes scanning the ruins with uncharacteristic caution. "The place I sensed." Lin Feng stepped forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword as a precaution. "Be wary. Power lingers here." They approached the altar together. Resting upon its cracked surface was a single stone tablet, its inscriptions faint, but still legible. As Lin Feng traced the ancient characters, a chill spread through his chest. One shall ascend, one shall fall. The heavens decree. Only through sacrifice may immortality be attained. A cold weight settled in the pit of Lin Feng's stomach. "A prophecy," he whispered. This speaks of us." Yue Han's expression darkened, though he tried to mask it behind a faint, teasing smile. "Perhaps it speaks of many. We're not so unique." Lin Feng shook his head. "No, this is too precise. It speaks of dual cultivation, of two paths joined, but only one allowed to reach the heavens." The meaning was clear. If their bond continued to grow, if their powers fused any further, the heavens would demand payment. One life for the other's transcendence. For a moment, neither spoke. The unspoken truth hung between them like the mist. Yue Han broke the silence first, his voice softer than usual. "Then we stop." Lin Feng turned sharply. "What?" "We stop," Yue Han repeated. "I won't be the reason you fall. You've sacrificed enough. You should continue without me." Lin Feng's hands clenched at his sides. "You speak of fate as if it is absolute." "It is," Yue Han whispered. "We live in a world where fate binds us from the moment we are born." "Then let us defy it." Lin Feng's voice rose, his emotions finally breaking through his usual calm. "If the heavens demand we sever this bond, then we will find a path they cannot control." Yue Han looked at him for a long moment, the weight of Lin Feng's words settling in his chest. The walls he had carefully built for so long threatened to crumble. You would risk your ascension, Yue Han said softly. For me. Lin Feng's reply was quiet, but unwavering. I already have. The words left Yue Han breathless. For the first time, he allowed his carefully crafted mask to fall, revealing the vulnerability beneath. His gaze wavered, and for a brief moment, raw emotion passed between them. Slowly, Yue Han reached out, his fingertips brushing against Lin Feng's hand. The simple contact sent a shiver up Lin Feng's spine, a touch they had both long denied. If we walk this path, Yue Han whispered, we walk it together. Lin Feng closed his fingers around Yue Han's hand, firm and certain. Together. As they stood there, the ancient temple seemed to hum with quiet defiance, as if bearing silent witness to the choice they had made. Overhead, the moon broke through the clouds, casting silver light over the ruins. The heavens may have written their fate, but Lin Feng and Yue Han had begun to write a story of their own. Chapter 7. Heavenly Tribulation. The sky was no longer calm. Dark clouds gathered above Moonlit Peak, as if the heavens themselves had awakened to punish what should not exist. Thunder rumbled in the distance, deep and ominous, shaking the ground beneath Lin Feng and Yue Han's feet. They stood at the summit, surrounded by the swirling wind. The air crackled with raw spiritual energy, heavy and suffocating. Yue Han exhaled slowly, his usual playful tone absent. It started. Lin Feng nodded, his sword resting in his hand, the blade already humming with azure lotus energy. The heavens have made their move. Their decision to defy fate had summoned the ultimate judgment, the heavenly tribulation. Above them, the storm churned violently. Bolts of golden lightning lashed across the blackened sky, illuminating the clouds like living veins. Each flash pulsed with terrifying might, far stronger than any tribulation Lin Feng had ever seen. This is not a normal ascension trial. Yue Han's voice was tense, eyes following the swirling vortex overhead. It's trying to destroy us both. Lin Feng glanced at him, his voice steady despite the chaos. Then we survive it together. Without warning, the first strike descended. A jagged spear of lightning tore through the sky, aiming directly for them. Lin Feng moved first, his sword flashing as brilliant lotus petals bloomed around him, absorbing the impact. The petals withered under the force, but held. Another strike followed instantly. Yue Han spun beside him, shadows exploding from his fingertips as his moon shadow arts coiled upward like a serpent, redirecting the blast into the swirling mist. The force shook the mountaintop, scattering petals from the ancient tree behind them. The tribulation pressed harder. Dozens of lightning bolts rained down in rapid succession. Lin Feng and Yue Han moved as one, sword and shadow, light and darkness, weaving into a single, seamless rhythm. Their combined cultivation created a barrier neither could achieve alone. And yet, the storm did not relent. Each strike grew stronger, hungrier. The heavens screamed in fury, determined to crush the union that defied its decree. Yue Han's breathing grew heavier, his demonic core flaring as he poured every ounce of strength gone into holding back the storm. Blood trickled from the core. There was no time. Yue Han moved without hesitation, throwing himself into the path of the blast. His moon shadow barrier flared, absorbing as much of the strike as it could before shattering under the force. The lightning struck him full force, sending him crashing to the ground. Yue Han, Lin Feng shouted, rushing to his side. Yue Han's robes were scorched, his breathing shallow. Despite the pain etched into his face, his eyes met Lin Feng's, still filled with that same unwavering devotion. You're almost there, finish it. The storm howled, preparing for a final blow. Lin Feng stood, his fury igniting. His sword glowed brighter than ever before, azure lotus petals swirling wildly around him. The storm answered his defiance, sending the last catastrophic strike from the heavens. But this time, Lin Feng didn't defend. He claimed it. The lightning crashed into his sword, merging with the lotus petals as they spun into a brilliant spiral of energy. Sword light and tribulation force fusing into one. With a roar, Lin Feng redirected the power upward, sending it crashing back into the heart of the storm. The clouds ruptured, the tribulation scattered. Silence fell. The sky slowly cleared, revealing a pale moon glowing softly above them. The petals of Moonlit Peak drifted once more, returning to their gentle dance in the breeze. Lin Feng dropped to his knees beside Yue Han, pulling him into his arms. It's over. Yue Han's lips curved into a faint smile. We survived. Lin Feng held him tightly, whispering softly against his hair. Together. And above them, the heavens that once sought to tear them apart now stood powerless, witnesses to a bond that refused to break. Chapter 8. The Sect War Ignites. The brief peace following the heavenly tribulation was not meant to last. Though Lin Feng and Yue Han had survived the wrath of the heavens, word of their defiance spread quickly. It wasn't long before the sects responded, not with admiration, but with fear. The leaders of Cloudvale sect, humiliated by Lin Feng's rebellion, rallied their allies. Rumors twisted the truth into something monstrous, that Lin Feng had fallen to demonic corruption, that Yue Han had seduced him into darkness. The call for blood was swift. Now, under a storm-darkened sky, Lin Feng and Yue Han stood at the edge of Moonlit Peak. Below, armies of cultivators gathered like a rising tide. Dozens of sects, their banners fluttering in the wind, swords drawn, spiritual energies flaring. They've come, Yue Han said quietly, his usual teasing absent. All of them. Lin Feng's gaze was steady, calm despite the impossible odds. we knew they would. Side by side, they watched as the sea of cultivators spread out, forming a ring around the peak. At the front stood sect leader Wu and Lin Feng's former senior brother, Jianming, once an ally, now an enemy. Lin Feng, Jianming's voice rang out across the battlefield, amplified by his spiritual energy. There is still time. Surrender the demon, submit to judgment, and your life may yet be spared. Lin Feng stepped forward, his voice clear and unwavering. I will not surrender, Yue Han, nor will I stand down. Jianming's expression hardened. Then you leave us no choice. The moment shattered. Swords were drawn, spiritual attacks unleashed. Waves of deadly energy surged up the mountainside as hundreds of cultivators charged. The battle had begun. Lin Feng's sword gleamed with azure lotus energy, his every strike cutting through waves of attackers with precision and grace. Lotus petals spun around him like a shield, deflecting blades and blasts alike. Beside him, Yue Han danced through the chaos, his moon shadow arts weaving ribbons of darkness through the enemy ranks. Shadows lashed out like living serpents, wrapping around opponents and disarming them with elegant, merciless strikes. They fought as one, sword and shadow, perfectly synchronized. But the enemies were many. Jianming launched himself forward, his blade glowing with fierce energy as he clashed directly with Lin Feng. Suddenly, a group of sect elders surrounded Yue Han, preparing a coordinated strike. Spiritual chains laced with suppression seals shot toward him, seeking to bind his power. Yue Han's eyes narrowed. The chains struck, wrapping around his arms, his legs, but before they could tighten fully, a flash of blue light cut through them. Lin Feng, breaking away from his duel with Jianming, Lin Feng appeared at Yue Han's side in an instant, his sword slicing through the chains effortlessly. I said, Lin Feng growled, we fight together. Yue Han exhaled a breathless laugh. Took you long enough. The two turned back to back, their combined spiritual energy rising in a brilliant spiral of light and shadow. Their dual cultivation synergy reached its peak, a perfect fusion of their opposing forces. Around them, the sect forces hesitated, their attacks faltering as the sheer pressure of Lin Feng and Yue Han's combined aura pushed outward like a wave. Jianming staggered, eyes widening. This is impossible. Lotus petals spun wildly as moonlit shadows coiled through them, creating a vortex of power that tore through the battlefield, scattering their enemies. One by one, the attacking sects faltered, their cultivators falling or retreating under the overwhelming force. Finally, silence returned. The few remaining sect leaders stood frozen, staring in shock at the two figures still standing at the peak, unharmed, unbroken. Sect leader Wu's voice cracked. This is unnatural. No, Lin Feng said firmly, his voice cutting through the air. This is balance. He lowered his sword, Yue Han stepping beside him as they faced the defeated forces. The heavens have failed, Lin Feng continued. And so have you. The battle was over, not by their surrender, but by their victory. And from that moment forward, The legend of the cultivators who defied fate would spread far beyond the mountains, whispered by future generations as the ones who broke the heavens' decree. Chapter 9. Breaking the Heavens. The sky above Moonlit Peak darkened once more. Though the sects had been defeated, their battle triggered something far more dangerous. Something even Lin Feng and Yue Han had not fully prepared for. The very world trembled beneath their feet as cracks of golden light split across the heavens like an ancient, unseen force awakening. The decree of fate itself, the prophecy they had defied, was unraveling. "It's not over," Yue Han whispered, his voice steady despite the ominous energy building around them. Lin Feng's gaze was firm, his grip tightening on his sword. The heavens refused to yield. The ground split open in thin fractures as enormous pillars of light erupted from the earth. A swirling vortex formed above, pulling at the very fabric of reality. The prophecy was correcting itself, or trying to. And at its center, a figure slowly taking form. Not a physical enemy, but the embodiment of the heavenly law they had broken. A mass of blinding light, its voice, neither male nor female, rang out like distant echoes of 1,000 voices. You were not meant to exist together. One must fall. One must ascend. The decree they had carried since the beginning now stood before them in its truest form. Yue Han took a slow step forward, his expression unreadable. "If it demands a sacrifice, then let it be me." "No," Lin Feng's voice was sharp, cutting through the wind. "We choose together." Heavenly entity's energy surged, lashing down toward them like divine spears of golden light. Lin Feng and Yue Han moved as one, azure lotus sword and moon shadow energy fusing into a single spiral, forming a shield that deflected the attacks. But each strike grew stronger. "You can't hold it back forever," Yue Han said between breaths, sweat beading on his brow. "I won't need to," Lin Feng replied. His voice dropped to a whisper, his eyes locked on Yue Han. "Not if we break the prophecy entirely." Yue Han's gaze softened. "How?" Lin Feng extended his hand. "Trust me." Without hesitation, Yue Han grasped his hand. The moment their palms met, a pulse of energy burst outward. The fusion of their cultivations deepened, reaching a level neither had ever touched. Light and shadow, intertwined so tightly, they became inseparable. The world around them warped. The sky cracked like shattered glass. The heavenly law resisted, its voice growing desperate. Fate is balance. One cannot exist without the other's fall. Lin Feng's voice rose, steady and defiant. "Then we create a new balance." He stepped forward, lifting his sword toward the heavens. The azure lotus glowed brighter than ever, infused with Yue Han's moonlit shadow. Petals spun wildly around them, forming a storm of silver and blue light. With a roar, Lin Feng unleashed his final technique. The fused energy surged upward, piercing directly into the heart of the heavenly vortex. Golden light screamed as cracks spread across its form, the divine law unraveling in front of them. This is not the way. The last remnants of the heavenly force shattered in a brilliant burst of light, dissolving into stardust that rained down like falling petals. The winds calmed, the mountains stilled. Silence. It was over. Lin Feng staggered slightly, catching himself as Yue Han reached out to steady him. The skies, once dark and oppressive, now cleared to reveal a pale moon glowing softly above them. The cherry blossoms that crowned Moonlit Peak drifted once again in the peaceful night air. The heavens had been broken, the prophecy erased. Breathing heavily, Yue Han offered a faint smile. We won. Lin Feng returned the smile, reaching up to gently touch Yue Han's cheek. We rewrote fate. Above them, no voice of judgment remained. Only the quiet whisper of falling petals bore witness to what they had done. From this moment on, they were no longer bound by prophecy, sect, or heaven itself. Their story was entirely their own. Chapter 10, Blossoms Eternal. The world had finally grown quiet. The endless storms, the heavenly decrees, the battles, and the accusations, all of it had passed. What remained was stillness, like the first breath of spring after a long and brutal winter. At the peak of the mountain, where fate had once tried to erase them, Lin Feng and Yue Han stood beneath the ancient cherry blossom tree. Its branches stretched wide above them, soft petals floating gently to the ground with every passing breeze. The heavens no longer watched. The prophecy that once demanded one life for the other's ascension had been shattered. Their bond, once forbidden, had instead become the very force that rewrote the heavens' law. For months now, they had lived here in peace. The sects that once pursued them scattered after their failed war. Cloudvale's sect had fallen silent, its power broken. The whispers that once painted them as traitors had turned into rumors of reverence. Their defiance had become legend. And yet, none of that mattered now. Lin Feng looked up at the moon above, the same pale moon that had witnessed every step of their journey. The azure lotus within him bloomed stronger than ever, no longer fractured, but complete. Yue Han approached softly from behind, his presence a familiar warmth at Lin Feng's side. The demonic aura that once marked him as a danger was now faint, fully stabilized by their union. The shadows that once clung to him now flowed like a gentle river, rather than a raging storm. It feels strange, Yue Han whispered, his voice softer than Lin Feng had ever heard it. After everything, to finally be at peace. Lin Feng smiled faintly. We earned this. Yue Han chuckled. That sounds dangerously close to pride, Lin Feng. Lin Feng shook his head with mock seriousness. No, just truth. They both laughed, their tension finally dissolving into the night air. The wind picked up, lifting the blossoms into a gentle spiral around. Without another word, Yue Han withdrew a thin silk ribbon embroidered with moon and lotus patterns. Carefully, he tied it around Lin Feng's wrist, his fingers lingering slightly longer than necessary. "I vow," Yue Han whispered, his voice steady but filled with quiet emotion, "to walk beside you through tribulation or peace for as long as this world allows." Lin Feng met his gaze fully, drawing a second ribbon of pale blue silk from within his sleeve. He tied it around Yue Han's wrist, mirroring the act. "And I vow," Lin Feng said softly, "to protect you, to choose you, and to walk this path, one we built together, without fear of what the heavens may say." The petals swirled around them, as if blessing the moment. They stood hand in hand beneath the blossoms, their hearts beating in unison. Above, the stars glittered in the clear sky, no longer judging, only bearing silent witness. From this day forward, theirs was not a tale of tragedy, but one of victory. The legend of Lin Feng and Yue Han, the cultivators who broke the heaven's decree, would echo through the ages. But for them, it was simply the beginning of the life they had fought so desperately to claim. Together, always.